Welcome to Bet On. I'm Kelly Stewart, your host for tonight. We're going to break down this week's AFC and NFC Championship games with my boys, Marco D'Angelo and Gianni the Greek. If you guys are not giving them a follow on Twitter, you're already too late to the party. These guys don't want any more followers. Let's get to this week's show. I didn't really want to do this segment, but I guess we have to. Marco wanted to look back at the national championship game.
Got to do it. Got to do it.
All right, Marco, I'm going to let you have the floor.
Well, Kelly, it was a win for the books. Small. Some of the books actually said they took a small loss with LSU, but they were saved immensely with the kneel down at the end of the game.
Of course they were.
If it would have been LSU and the over, the books would have, they would have been carrying stretchers in and out, taking the guys out with it. They would have need dental records to identify the bodies at the sports books, but they got saved. And did you ever think watching the game? I mean, the game started slow, and that's the beauty of in-game, betting. The first few minutes of the game was slow. Everybody was filling one another out, a couple long drives and everything. And the total came down as low as I saw 59.5, and then all of a sudden the scoring started and boom, boom, boom went up, and it still didn't go over the original total that saved them, thanks to Ed Orgeron having a heart and taking the knee there. But the books, let's not feel sorry for them, because we're going to talk also about the NFL playoff games last week. And although there were some bad outcomes, one outcome from everybody that I talked to in Vegas, the sportsbook directors, the Baltimore result was the biggest.
That was wild.
That was the biggest win for the sports books all season long. Baltimore going down, because not only the straight bets, the teaser bets, all the money line parlays, that virtually killed every parlay that was out there, because the public loves to take, just throw, you're making a parlay, and you got 4 teams in it already. Oh, hell, let's throw another one in there and take that big favorite.
Does it even really help your parlay odds? I mean, when you're laying minus 450.
You're better off adding the dog to it. That'll add to it, or let it go.
Yeah, I never really quite understand those moves, but it was wild. I had the Titans plus 10.5. I had been having a little bit of fun at the Westgate Clubhouse, met some fans of the show. Shout out to Joe and Dan. They were great, but it is hilarious because Dan and I were speaking about it, and he goes, Kel, I know you don't bet a lot of alternate lines. He goes, I saw you had the one on the Browns versus the Steelers. They have plus 3.5, plus 215 here at Westgate. He goes, I know you said you didn't sprinkle the money line, but don't you think Tennessee keeps it within a field goal? And I go, absolutely. Okay, fine. A couple margaritas said, go ahead, do it. And at no point in time was either of those bets in danger. It was a wild, wild game. I wonder how much that's skewing my perception of them going to Kansas City this weekend, though.
Possibly, but let's talk about the other end of the spectrum. How about if you teased Houston last week? And you're sitting at the end of the first.
You shouldn't tease Houston.
Well,
but
you shouldn't,
yes,
but there are people that teased
yes.
Houston. And
how about if you were holding a Houston plus 10 ticket? That was bad enough.
Yeah, you're sitting there with plus 16. You're going to the second quarter, in essence, up 40-0, and you lose the teaser. You lose the teaser. How, and for the books, I mean, they need one blowout with the games all the time. You have to have that one blowout to kill some of the teasers, because and we've had it happen many times. We talked about it before. That one, year, the first round of the playoffs, every combination, favorite or dog, was a winner on the teasers. And the books take a beating when that happens. So you need to get that one out there. And I know, you do your show with John Murray, and, they had to be happy when they saw Baltimore go down outright.
I think that was an interesting one. Now, for their future book, they had actually told me that they needed Baltimore. I think Kansas City, Green Bay.
Well, because at the beginning of the season, nobody was going with Lamar Jackson to do what he did. Everybody saw what happened last year in the playoffs. And then, what happened again in the playoffs, and so, but back to.
Maybe you have a new best regular season team in the Baltimore Ravens.
Possibly.
Possibly. But go back to the Clemson game, and it was a really weird bet game. And let's face it, full disclosure, everybody on this panel was on Clemson.
Absolutely.
We were there. The value was there, and the betting in the game.
Well, I think. Let me stop you real quick for value because I want to do a little PSA. I put out my BR betting video. I send it to them. I have no control when they post it, right? Yeah. They post it. They have all sorts of algorithms, and they have computer things that tell them when they're supposed to tweet certain things. It's weird, and I don't understand it. But when I send a video, I'm sending what the line is that I bet at the time I bet it. So anyway, they post it. Of course, this is at the time the line is plummeting, and everybody's like, well, where did you get 6? If you did not get 6 on this Clemson game, I do not feel sorry for you. It was a losing result regardless. Right. But if you're waiting and you laid, 4 with LSU, then that was the value side to lay 4 with LSU because that was the best number you could have gotten.
But it was the way the betting went because all during the early betting on the game led up. It kept creeping up, and you talk to sportsbook directors and they said they can't get Clemson bets. But then they started getting the Clemson bets on the sharps because I don't know a sharp in town that didn't bet Clemson. Everybody,
I know a couple of guys that bet LSU at -4, hoping to somehow middle it, which at 5 we know is kind of a dead number. But also, I was able to get 6.5 with a local guy because, well, he was just that buried. He didn't have a choice but to move to 6.5. And at that point in time, that's when the books hit 6, we knew that they were just begging for Clemson money, and they got it.
But this is a perfect example, and Ace, you could talk about this more, where people have the perception that sharps move the numbers, and yet the line did come back at the end, but the result still was more LSU money. The public, for every sharp bettor, there's hundreds of guys betting $100 bills, okay? Just betting
of course.
$50 and $100. And those add up so fast, and people think, well, the sharps move the market. They do move the market to a degree, but the public, when you get these standalone games like that.
Like this, the Super Bowl,
yes,
National Championship of College Basketball, NBA Finals, absolutely.
They are, and that's why people always talk about when you're looking for value, they look for the value like in college basketball. There's so many college basketball teams. John Q. Public's not drilling down to those small conference teams.
Marco, I'm not drilling down to those small conference teams. I don't have time to look over 300-plus college basketball teams.
But that's where you find value.
I agree.
You have to look and find everything out. And then here we are this week. We're going to, we've got extended time this week for the show, so that's why we're kind of giving you a little bit of BS. And we're going to tease you a little bit. There's a big announcement coming later in the show. That we'll talk about a little later when a segment we have some more time that I think will make a lot of people happy.
Yeah, up next, guys, we're going to break down the NFC Championship Game, the AFC Championship Game. I begged VR, which hopefully is not going to break his contract with the UFC. I said, hey, it's big fight weekend here in Las Vegas. Bring me some best bets. I'm looking.
Ready to go.
I want to bet this, and I don't have time to look at the UFC. I want to get into it. I enjoy going to the fight. I don't even know if I'm going to get to go to the fight. I'm trying to hey, can I get some tickets? Anybody got some free tickets?
You see what the prices are? Tickets
That's
on
what I mean.
StubHub?
I didn't get a chance to talk on the national championship, but real quickly, if you made a bet on LSU -6, you didn't place a good bet. You won that bet, but it wasn't a good bet. I mean, well, time's up.
Yeah, it is, but it's okay.
I want to get into that because that's the key. It's too result-oriented, what happened.
And we'll get to one-game sample size.
Yeah.
And we can talk more about the math and especially going out throughout the rest of the show. We'll get to it. But we're going to step out for a quick break. When we return, we're going to look at the 2 Sunday Conference Championship games. I'm really excited to talk about one of these underdogs, and that is up next on Bet On It.
Get $25 in WagerBucks added to your account after your first purchase at WagerTalk.com and SportsMemo.com. This is just our way of saying thank you for joining the WagerTalk and SportsMemo family.
Did you know every Tuesday is $2 Tuesday at WagerTalk.com? We pick the hottest handicapper and offer his best bet for just $2. This is a great way to introduce yourself to the winning handicappers at WagerTalk and SportsMemo.com. Welcome back to Bet On. It's time for us to take a deep dive into Sunday's AFC Championship Game. Current line, Kansas City -7.5. There are some 7s, -120s out there. Pretty much 52, 52.5 across the board. If you like the under, there are some 53s available. So not really a big decision here on the total. VR, I'm going to start with you first. Why? Because I know Kansas City fans love you. I can't wait to tell you how horribly wrong you are.
I had Kansas City last week. I gave them out.
Did you really?
WagerTalk guys, big moves guys, they all got Kansas City for me. I bet Kansas City. So anyone that thinks I just fade them because I
congratulations
don't
to you.
like them, no, to me, it just happens that they tended to be overvalued at certain times because everyone's betting them.
Yes.
And I don't tend to bet teams that you got to pay a high premium
Well,
for.
for example,
That's-
the New England Patriots, you talk about them all the time.
Exactly. Of course they're great. We all know they're great,
Yeah.
but it's
You're paying
tough.
a premium every
it's
single
tough
week.
to find value in them.
How'd you feel at the end of the first quarter?
That I had the wrong side. That again, their phone. That's what I thought. That you had one job.
Yeah.
That's all you got to do is New England's out of it. Baltimore's out of it.
Yeah.
It's your Super Bowl now. Your
Yeah.
Super Bowl to get to. You are the AFC representative. All you got to do is get past teams that shouldn't even be there. No other team in the AFC was even favored to make the playoffs that are left in there. Let alone
The Titans weren't even favored to win their division.
they were like 50-1 in December.
Yeah,
to win the
I know
Super Bowl,
plenty of guys
100-1.
with 60s and
Yeah,
and
just
some good
weeks
numbers.
ago, just
Yeah.
a few weeks ago. That's what I mean. So, again, this is Kansas City's AFC right now to lose. This is going to be a tough game for them.
I think so.
Here's the problem. Power rating wise, the value's on Kansas City right now. For most sharp bettors will tell you power rating wise, Kansas City should probably be even a bigger favorite. The flip side to that is what's the adjustment you got to make from that first game? Because if you remember, Kansas City went into Tennessee as almost 5-6 point favorite.
I had Tennessee in that game, and I was very happy to catch that money line ticket because they almost choked it away.
Right. Kansas City lost that game.
Yes,
But
they did.
There's one thing we've learned through the years is you're not supposed to overreact off any single result. So based on that fact that Tennessee won by a field goal, that's one possession. That's randomness. Anything could happen either way. So with that said, from that -5 on the road, factor in home field advantage for Kansas City, they should be a double-digit favorite in this spot. And I think most power ratings reflect that. But, Tennessee's looked really good of late. And it looks like a different Tennessee, at least over the last 4 or 5 weeks. So how much should you adjust your power ratings? That's where the difficulty comes in. So for me, I think if Kansas City wins this game, they're probably going to win the Super Bowl. Most likely, I think they could beat either of those NFC teams. But I think the value on this game's on the under, especially with Kansas City putting up 51 last week. I think this number, let it keep climbing. It
looks like it's going to.
It's not wise guy money like behind it, a legit move on that. Rest assured. That's getting out ahead of the number 50, 51. Let it get up to that 54, 55 range, and I'm betting under. I think that's where the value is in this game. I think you're going to see a lot lower scoring than that first time around, and there's a lot on the line in this game.
Marco, there's so much to talk about in this game, and I'm being pulled in 18 different directions, right? I did a radio spot this morning, and the guy made me laugh when we were talking about the Titans, and I go, I don't think I can name a Titans receiver outside of A.J. Brown, because it was like off the cuff. We were talking about a different subject, and all of a sudden he's like, well, let me get your favorite bet this weekend. And I'm like, okay. It's true, though. This is a Ryan Tannehill led, which I do think he's a good game manager right now. I think what he's doing with the Titans proves that Adam Gase is probably more of an issue than we ever thought he was. And also, you have Derrick Henry, who's able to just ground and pound. And over the last few weeks, 211 yards, 182 yards, 195 yards. Does Cinderella disappear at midnight? What happens to Cinderella? Doesn't she turn into a pumpkin or something at midnight? Is that what's going to happen to the Titans here?
That's what I think is going to happen here. And let's look at it realistically. You talk about Tennessee, they're the flavor of the week. Everybody's jumped on board. I said when we went back to the first week of the playoffs, I said Tennessee's going to be a hard out. Their toughest game is going to be the New England game. If they get by them, look out. Well, look out.
Look out.
What out, okay? But now this is a matchup that doesn't work for them. Yes, Derrick Henry's been sensational. Ryan Tannehill hasn't really done anything the last 2 weeks. They've only thrown the football the last 2 games. He was 9 of 16 2 games ago for 71 yards, 8 of 15 last week for 83 yards. Why? Because they haven't had to throw the football. They're going to have to throw the football in this game. You know Kansas City's going to stack the line, forcing them to throw the football. They're going to try to take Derrick Henry out of this game. Let's go back to that first meeting when we talked about it, and I had Tennessee in that game as well. We were lucky to win that game. If you remember at the end of the game, It was a seesaw game the whole way, and we were covering. But at the end of the game, Tennessee didn't have the timeouts to stop Kansas City. That Kansas City had to, or excuse me, they did use their timeouts to stop Kansas City and force them to kick a field goal, which would have put them up over the spread. We were covering the whole way, but that field goal would have cost us the spread. What happened? They blocked the field goal. We got the ball back and ended up getting the game-winning touchdown. That was also the first game that Mahomes came back from his injury. Remember, he missed the Kansas City or the Green Bay and Minnesota game. That was the first game back. So he wasn't at 100% mobility either in that game.
This is a very good point.
And they still were in position to win and cover that game on the road. Now they're playing in Kansas City, and you're right. This line's not what it should be. This line should be higher, but it's because of the public perception right now of what they're doing. What happens if Kansas City gets...
if they get a lead, it's over.
If they get a 2-score lead and Tennessee has to come out of that. New England was not a team that was going to stretch the field. We know they have no receivers. Brady couldn't throw downfield the second half of the season, whether it was a tired arm, whatever. He didn't have the weapons. Last week, look at the yardage that Baltimore put up. For whatever reason, they just couldn't get it in.
Well, they had a couple of turnovers.
Yeah.
And honestly, this Titans red zone defense is right up there with the Vikings. This is a good red zone defense. They've showed it a couple of times this year. This is going to be, I think this is going to be a great game. I'm excited to watch it. I don't know if I'm brave enough to take VR's under, though.
You'll be holding your breath, that's for
Which
sure.
probably means it's the right side.
Yeah, anytime you'll be holding your breath for the whole season.
But you'll never be safe.
Yeah.
You just never feel comfortable. But here's the thing. Last week on the show, although I liked Kansas City and we got the money, I really bashed the Kansas City defense. I said, I said, look at what they've done down the stretch. Yes, they've held all these teams to 17 points or less, but they were garbage offenses. Last week, you look at the scoreboard and you see 51-31 and say, okay, hey, Marco was right. They gave up 31 points. No, Marco was wrong. 17 of those points at the beginning of the game were gifts, absolute gifts.
Well, the punt, the muffed
blocked
punt was helpful
for a touchdown, the muffed punt, and then they had another play where they had one big play. You look at the rest of that game, that defense played sensational. They shut down a team that had all kinds of momentum. And they ended up with, after that point, the first 17 points scored in that game, they only gave up 14 more points after that. I think this defense is playing good. They're healthy. I'm going to do about face on that. And if they can slow down Derrick Henry at all, and Patrick Mahomes has any kind of game like he has, and let's face it, Tennessee's defense during the season was not stopping passing attacks. They haven't been tested in the playoffs yet. They get tested this week, and let's not forget this fact. Yes, this is their third playoff game in a row on the road. It's actually their fourth game in a row because they had to finish the season on the road at Houston in a must-win game.
Year's.
And even though Houston rested everybody, it was a game they had to win. And so they had to, this is 4 straight weeks. Hate to use the saying, but pedal to the metal. I think it stops here. It's midnight.
All right. God. You guys know I love those underdogs, and maybe I'm taking the Tennessee bait. We'll talk about this more in a later segment in regards to where the spread is as far as teasers go, but I wanted to get your guys' opinion on that as well, because it's really interesting that neither of these lines, obviously we're going to be talking about the NFC coming up here in a second, have moved off 7.5. Yeah. And usually the sportsbook directors like to buy themselves a little bit of cushion there. So we'll get into that one here in a minute. So maybe kind of keep an eye on that one. It is time for us to take a quick break. But when we return, we were going to look at that NFC Championship game. Green Bay Packers head to San Fran for the second time this year. Can they pull off the upset?
Looking for more NFL betting info? Then tune into the Presidential Address each week when WagerTalk's own Lawrence Presman, the Prez, along with Ralph Michaels, break down this week's entire NFL card. The show is available every week exclusively at WagerTalk TV. This week only, get 7 days of all-access service from your favorite capper at WagerTalk.com. A 7-day package normally sells for $119, but when you use coupon code VIP79 at checkout, you'll get 7 days for just $79. That's every play in all sports for $79. This includes all 5% plays that sell for $40 by themselves. Hurry, as this is a limited time offer.
Welcome back to Bet On. It's time for us to take a look at the Sunday NFC Championship game. This one's going to be, I think, one of the better games. Let's see, 7.5, 7 across, well, 7 minus 120 across Vegas. 45 flat. If you go one of the square books, you get a 45.5 if you like the under. We'll get to that later on in the show. VR, I'm going to start with you first. I know you have an interesting take on this one, and I somewhat agree.
Yeah, here's the round. We touched on it when we started the NFL playoffs that 83% of the time, strictly pick the winner of the game, you're going to cover the spread, historically, every round. In the wild card round, it was up to around 88%. Then in the divisional round, it drops significantly. And we touched on that last week, where if you're going to take the dog, you want to take them with the points. This week, it goes right back to that week 1 wild card round, where simply pick the winner. More times than not, close to 8 out of 10 times, the favorite's either going to blow the dog away, meaning covering the number pretty easily, or the dog's going to win the game outright, not even needing the points. That's what history tells us, and it's not surprising, because when you get to the conference championship, more times than not, you're looking at least 2 of the 4 best teams in the NFL, sometimes 3 or 4. Or maybe the best 4 teams left. A lot of times that's not the case because of the randomness in football. They don't play 5 or 7 game series, so the best team isn't always the last one standing in the NFL. But with that said, I think you got at least 2 of the best teams in football in this one. But with that said, I'll tell you this. Here's what I like in this game. I like Green Bay, and I like them on the money line. I think if you're going to bet it, why even take the points at plus 300? 25% of the time, if they could win, is my break even. And for me, I look at it this way. If they do cover this game, history tells me they win the game more times than not, at least 8 out of 10 times, close to that in this conference championship. So why even take the 7 points? I don't think I'm going to need it. I like the fact that not only did San Fran beat them, but they annihilated them.
That's what I want to ask.
That's what I love. If it was flukiness, if it was 3 fumbles that Green Bay had, or 3 interceptions, or block punts, or stuff like that, I'd be worried. But the fact San Francisco just annihilated them, that Green Bay didn't even show up. I mean, Rodgers had 100 yards passing. It was terrible in the first half.
I was on San Fran, and I was like, wow, that was
so
I didn't
easy.
even all to be that easy.
That's why.
So how much, and this applies for the last game as well, but how much do you look into beating a team twice in a season?
But it's the experience factor, too.
Okay.
Garoppolo hasn't been in this situation.
Okay.
That's why I say if
wasn't
Kansas City
impressed with
wins
Garoppolo
this,
last weekend.
Kansas City, this is their back. I mean, this is the second time now Mahomes been in an AFC Championship game. At this young, this is great experience for Kansas City. I joke about the regular season, but they're actually getting some playoff experience now. And if they could win some games and keep that team together, and the way New England's dropping, they could be the team to beat in the AFC for a couple of years. If they could manage to continue winning playoff games, and that's why it's so big what's going to happen with Tennessee. But again, I do think Green Bay, with their experience and the way they're coming in, let's not forget, it's a team that's won now 6-7 straight games in a row. A ton of momentum, a ton of confidence. And I think you're going to see a much different game plan than what you saw last time at San Francisco. I don't think San Francisco is going to see it as easy of an afternoon. And I like the experience with Rodgers in a close game to get to the Super Bowl, as opposed to Garoppolo, even in San Francisco.
Yeah. Jimmy G, who's 21-5 as a starter, I don't want to discredit him. Marco, as you know, I liked the Vikings last week. It was 7-7. We were cruising right along, and all hell broke loose. But I will say, Jimmy G did not play his best game, and at a point, Kyle Shanahan took that ball out of his hands and said, you know what, we're not going to trust you to make these big plays anymore. We're going to win this game instead. That kind of concerns me. Your thoughts on this Green Bay-San Fran matchup?
Well, I had San Francisco last week. That was my 5% play, and I liked the matchup with going against Minnesota. Back-to-back
you
weeks
said that.
on,
You liked
back-to-back weeks on the road. The Kirk Cousins factor. I just did not believe that Minnesota that Cook would be as effective 2 weeks in a row. He wasn't, and that put the onus on Kirk Cousins, and Kirk Cousins did what Kirk Cousins does, unfortunately. Now, for this week, to build on what VR was saying, you talked about Mahomes in last year and the learning experience. Okay, they were a coin flip away from going to the Super Bowl. It came down to, and for the playoff games, they got to change it. Both teams have to have an opportunity to have the football, even if the other team scores a touchdown on the first possession.
I agree, because you played 60 minutes and now you're going to leave it to a coin flip of a coin.
That's what kept them out, but it was a learning experience. I think for this game, it's Jimmy G's learning experience. He's not been on this stage. Let's go back to the first game, and you said something, that it was such a beatdown. It was, but if you go back and look, Green Bay was in the middle of 4 road games out of 5. Now, they did have their bye week in between there, and they were coming off the bye, and a lot of times teams don't play well coming out of the bye, especially if they went into the bye, on a good note. Green Bay, you look at this team, and they're 13-3, and all year we've all bashed them. We've done it.
Yeah.
They don't.
Well,
have
they've been outgaining almost every single game.
They don't have the stats for a 13-3 team. But you know what? They're using that as their mantra right now because everybody is talking about that. And the fact that they got beat so bad. You said, it wasn't a fluke. There was no. They got taken out behind the woodshed and got the snot beat out of them. So if you're San Francisco and you're preparing for this game, what do you change?
Just do the same thing.
You don't change anything because everything worked. But if you're Green Bay, you're going back to the drawing board. You're changing your whole game plan. Now, that actually gives Green Bay an advantage to start this game because San Francisco doesn't know what they're going to do. They're not going to do what they did last time, that's for sure. And that's why I'm going to give you a play that probably the first time all year I've given you a first half wager.
Oh, I thought you were going to go over with it.
No, I am going with Green Bay for the first half. And the reason for that is because they are going to come out with a different game plan. And I think they come out, and if you're San Francisco and you win the coin toss, do you want Jimmy G to have the ball first or do you want your defense on the field first?
That defense.
You want the defense on the field first. They're going to kick to Green Bay, and if Green Bay gets the toss, they're going to want the ball. I like Green Bay to come out with a different game plan, something that San Francisco is not going to be prepared for, and maybe can get that quick score. And you know how playing downhill, how easy it is. Playing uphill for Jimmy G is going to be different. I'll take them plus the 4 points. You're getting a good number for the first half wager.
Yeah, you're getting plus 4.5.
Yeah.
Some play at 4.5. I think that's the play here. And I think that Green Bay has the experience. You've got Aaron Rodgers. That team quit in the third quarter of that.
Oh, yeah, they had to. We've seen them do that before.
Okay. They're going to come back with fire in their eyes. I like this one. And, as you said, Jimmy G did not have a good performance last week. The defense was tremendous, and the running game was tremendous. And especially if this is a running game and you're playing a tight game, I'll take those 4 points. 4.5, that's my play. Take Green Bay plus the points, first half wager.
I like it. VR with the sprinkle symbol. I agree with you. Like you said, I have it written down again because I need to remind myself. And during the playoffs, you just need to pick the winner.
Pick the winner. So why not take plus 300 if you like that side?
We've seen it almost every single game so far. This playoff, just pick the winner, and it's been tremendous.
Sounds easier than it is, but yeah.
Well, it's actually, he's right. I didn't think the Titans were going to win that game, but I thought it was too many points. Well, think about how much extra cash I have in my pocket right now if I bet Titans money line.
March Madness, same thing.
It's very true. All right, guys, I enjoyed it. Good stuff. Let's bring in our resident stat man, Mr. Ralph Michaels, for some T&A. Ralph, I'm excited to see what you've got dug up for us this week. Ralph, I'm so sad. Football is almost coming to an end, but you have a laundry list over there of trends and angles for me. I know you have a ton of stuff you put up on your Twitter page each and every day, so if you guys are not following Ralph, at CalSportsLV, he just hit 15,000 followers. This guy didn't even want a Twitter account when I started at WagerTalk.
Yeah, good couple years. So, I want to tell people here, there's no wow numbers. It's not like in the regular season where we can come up with big angles. I wanted it to be specific for this round. So really, it's just letting you know the performance and what's happened. First, overtimes. Some people overreact. Both games went into overtime last year. Both dogs won outright, but in the last 28 years, there's only been 8 overtime games. So don't fall into the trap thinking, oh, I want to bet yes, there's an overtime because of last year's 2 games. Last year's 2 games also were 3.5-point lines, where this year we have bigger lines. A reminder, the dog hit both games last year. The dog hit both games 2 years ago, so the dog has hit 4 in a row.
Is that why I like all the dogs this weekend per usual?
You know, so I went back since 2018. The winner of the game is 18-4. So when you talk about those dogs, perhaps sprinkle some on the money line. In the last 12 years, the favorite has covered 11 games. The dog has covered 13. And of those 13 games the dog covered, they've won 8 of them outright.
Oh.
So again, something to think about, that the outright winner of the 13 times the dog covered, they have won straight up 8 times. So if you want to play something on the money line, can't argue at this point in time of the season. Some situations. NFL playoff teams, 4th straight road game, like Tennessee. Good or bad? It's been bad. 3-7 straight up. 3-6-1 against the spread. Home favorites in the last 16 years in this round, the division finals, 23-9 straight up. I would have thought it would have been higher with the average line. 17-14-1 against the spread. 18-13-1 over under. And a 6-point teaser, you'd be 24-7-1. Now, when you look at the 18-13-1 over under, let me say this. There were 5 games with an over-under line of 37 or less back a few years ago.
Yeah.
Those all 5 went over. So when we had a regular total of 38 or more, the over-unders have only been 13-13. So don't fall in a trap either way. Home favorites, when a team is off an away game, like Tennessee, 11-7 against the spread, 9-8 over-under. Home favorites off a team against a home opponent, like San Fran against Green Bay, 6-7 against the spread for that home team. 1 seed against 2 seed, 1 seed's 8-3 straight up, 5-6 ATS.
Wow. Ralph just over here dropping bombs for conference championship weekend. Great stuff as always from my favorite man over here, Mr. Ralph Michaels.
Guys, we're on a 23-12 run, our last 35 football plays. That's a 65% winning run. Last week, 2-0 in the playoffs, including our big 5% playoff game of the month that saw San Francisco -7 win 27-10. This weekend, I've got another 5% major wager play in one of the conference championship games. Join me for another easy winner this Sunday. Go to my homepage now at WagerTalk.com to sign up.
Be sure to check out Teddy Covers and Ralph Michaels on their new show, Wager Talk, each and every weekday on the Sports Grid TV network, live at 3 p.m. Eastern Time, noon Pacific. This is your daily Sports Central for gamblers, a full hour of loaded sports betting content. Check it out for free every weekday.
Welcome back to Bet On It. Many of you guys have asked, what is going to happen when football season ends? Well, we have some good news. I'm going to let Marco tell you guys about it. I kind of fought hard for this to be something different, but now I'm never going to get a vacation again.
Well, Twitter took care of that, Kelly. I'm sorry, all right? You're not allowed to leave because I'm not allowed to sit in your chair. This is good news. We're going to keep Bet On It rolling through. Starting next week, obviously there's no football next week because we have the week off. We're going to start covering basketball. We'll be covering other, we'll go through the NBA playoffs. We will take a month off. We will stop in the month of July, give us that little break before football season starts, but we're going to cover everything. And when we have special events, like there's a special event going on here in Vegas this week, and our man Gianni's going to talk about that in a moment. We're going to cover things like that. There'll be horse racing, the Triple Crown races, different things I'll be covering. We'll have, big golf tournaments. We'll have some people in that we can talk about. We'll have bookmakers in. So Bet On It is going to run through the season. You guys asked for it. You like it. We're going to keep it rolling, and I'm excited about it. And I really got to thank everybody.
So is now a bad time to tell everybody I won't be here next week because I'm going to be in Costa Rica?
Yeah, you can.
He's like, can you guys edit that out? Can you guys edit that out? All jokes aside, guys, we're gonna, I honestly would like to, like you said, start seeing some bookmakers in here, get some other people. Maybe I'll try to get Jeff Sherman from the Westgate to come in and do maybe a Masters preview with us. There's gonna be lots of special guests coming in here because obviously we all deserve a little bit of time off besides just the month of July. So
They don't want to hear me sitting in your seat next week. So why don't you send a picture to us, and we'll get them to put the graphic up
cardboard cutout.
of you on the beach, drinking, whatever, fruity drink you're drinking, in your bathing suit on the sand, and we'll just put that up the whole time I'm talking.
I'm going to need about 6 more detox teas before I post a picture of me in a swimsuit right now. All jokes aside, there is a major fight in Vegas this weekend. And hello, we have VR here. He is our resident fight expert with the UFC. I hope I don't get him contractually in trouble for this.
No.
But I have a whole list of UFC plays, and I think he should share them with you guys.
Yeah, no problem at all. Again, our goal here is to make you better bettors. As much as we want to give you free picks that win, it's such a small sample size. We're giving one best bet. And over the course of a year, of a season, it's 15, 16 bets. And you could go 12-4 and have a losing season overall. Did that make you a good bettor?
I was 12-1 with
or you
my
could
best
lose
bets,
here.
and then boom.
That's what I mean. Or you could lose on the show and then kill it. But the goal is to teach you to place best bets you can. So I'm glad we're doing this show and continuing it. I'm going to give you the main event as my best bet because I think it's free money. But there's a lot of value on this card. So
Whoa, I don't hear you say free money.
a
very
lot.
often.
I don't say it often. I don't. And it is. It's free money.
Okay, I can't wait.
So here's some more plays that you could use this weekend that I definitely already backed or will have money on.
Really quick before you start, I want to something that when you and I used to do some UFC videos together before, you talked about this with big money lines in the UFC. Is about the only time you recommend betting those big
Putting in those parlays. you mean?
Parlays, yes.
Yeah, listen, we know parlays are negative EV long term because you have to place them all at the same time, at the same book, at the same minute. And it's not optimum betting because you're supposed to line shop, you're supposed to bet it when the number's giving you the best value. But if you're going to be, you don't have a big bankroll, and a lot of casual bettors don't. You can't be betting these big minus 300,
Yeah,
400 favorites.
there's some huge
And
favorites.
unfortunately, between minus 300 and minus 400 has been the most profitable betting UFC over the last 10 plus years, believe it or not. That's been positive EV in that negative 300, the minus 400 range, believe it or not. It hasn't been the plus money that's made you money. So nothing wrong with tying in some parlays with those money lines. And I have 2 chalk ones that's what you can do with, but there's some dogs too, and some numbers that are hovering right around that minus 110. Real quickly, the women are offering the value. There are a couple dogs, a couple right around that plus 105 range. Alexa Grasso against Claudia Gadelha. Grasso opened the underdog. She should be a minus 140, 150 favorite. If you could get her now at minus 110 or better, great value there. And then Raquel Pennington against Holly Holm. Usually you take whoever won the first usually wins the rematch. Not the case. Pennington beat her the first time around. She just didn't get the split decision. Pennington wins this time. You get her again at plus money, plus 110, plus 115, when she should be the favorite. I'm all over it. And the third girl, J.J. Aldridge. As much as I like what I see out of Matzo, again, this is a spot where Aldridge's experience should have her about a minus 150 favorite, not a minus 110 favorite. So we'll go with Aldridge as well. Quickly before I go to Marco, the chalk that you want to get behind and don't waste your money on the dog, Nasrat Hakparas is going to beat Drew Dober. That kid coming at it from Canada, coming from TriStar Gym, is ready to go. He is going to ascend in the UFC for sure in that lightweight division. And then you may want to throw in, no, I'll wait for the main event.
Okay. All right, guys, let's talk about another big event that's coming up, the Super Bowl. Now, I know we haven't gotten through conference championship weekend, but our friends over at the Westgate put up Super Bowl odds. All of them put up the graphic for you guys in the back so you guys can see it as well. The Packers would be a 1-point favorite over the Titans. Kansas City, pretty sizable favorite over Green Bay, minus 4.5. That is the biggest one that it would be. If it was the Titans versus the Niners, they'd be a 4-point favorite. And the 49ers, Chiefs would damn near be a pick 'em, but they're going to leave the slight edge here. Kansas City minus 1.
The graphic's actually wrong.
Yes.
I'll point that out. It would be Kansas City minus 4.5 there.
Yes, it would be.
Yeah.
Sorry about that. Should have double checked before I asked them to put it up. All right, guys, your thoughts on some of these matchups. And if people are here in town this week, and they can get some action down.
Real quickly, I'll tell you mine. Then, Marco, take your time. I think Tennessee should be favored over Green Bay. I think Kansas City should be a much bigger favorite against Green Bay. I think 49ers versus Tennessee line's pretty much on, and I think Kansas City should be a bigger favorite against the Niners than they are. So I like Kansas City in both matchups if Kansas City gets to the Super Bowl, and I like Tennessee.
They're built for the regular season.
I know.
I
told you.
Who are you?
I have no problem saying I'm wrong. A fool doesn't admit he's wrong, and just banging his head against the wall. If Kansas City's going to make me money, I'm on them. I just don't think
my
that's
question
possible.
is, do you think there is value betting them now before this weekend? I mean, look, if Kansas City doesn't make it to the Super Bowl, you get your money back. You get refunded. It's not like
I think
West, you
so,
keep your money.
because I believe the only problem is the line's going to be affected on how these games get played out.
Correct.
If one team looks better than the other, they got to factor that into the betting line.
Absolutely.
I think Kansas City has the better chance of looking better against Tennessee than I think either the NFC teams. Because if Green Bay wins the game outright, I don't think people are going to adjust too much. The talk's going to be, San Francisco, Garoppolo just doesn't have experience, blah, 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 blah.
Right.
I think Kansas City is where you get the value right now. Get Kansas City -1 against San Francisco, I think is a good bet. And Kansas City -4.5 against Green Bay is, I think, a great bet. I think they should be a touchdown favorite against Green Bay.
Wow. Marco.
I hear what you're saying, and I agree with you that Kansas City beating Tennessee will look more impressive than Green Bay if they upset San Francisco, just because
The perception, yeah.
The perception. But the problem is, for me, is if you get Aaron Rodgers to the Super Bowl, the public loves Rodgers in Green Bay when they're an underdog. I don't think Vegas can make them too big of an underdog in this because of the public money. And we talked about
Mahomes haven't won anything yet.
We've talked about when you get these standalone games like this, these special events, the public can outweigh the sharps. And they're not going to let this number get that high. Honestly, my first reaction when I saw the board at 4.5, I was surprised. I thought 4 max, maybe 3.5, hedge it off the field goal. But, again, we talk about after 4.5, 5, 5.5, 6, they're not as, 6 becomes a different number, but the 5 and the 5.5 is not a big number if they go there, but it is a big number to the public perception of the average bettor. So I don't think it'll move off of that unless Kansas City puts up 51 points again like they did this week against Tennessee, who's the flavor of the week, as I said in the earlier segment. I mean, right now, everybody's in love with Tennessee and what they've done, and why not? This is a team that's, they're on a roll, and Derrick Henry is an absolute beast.
He sure is. All right, you guys ready?
Yep.
All right, we've taken as much of your time as we possibly can to break down these AFC and NFC Championship games every which way. And I'm the only one that's going to give out a play as their best bet. I'm going to take the under now. Hang tight. I'm going to take the under in the San Fran Green Bay game. Hang tight. Why?
Yeah, it's going to go up.
It's going to go up. It's going to go up. We say this every single week. I also liked the under in the Green Bay game last week, and it didn't get there. I still like it. I think both of these defenses are going to come to play. I made this game 24-21, so I also agree with VR. I like the Packers. I played them at 7.5 already, but this under, I haven't played yet, even though it is my favorite play. I know we're sitting on the key number 45 right now, open 44.5. We're seeing 45.5s pop up. You know who's going to come in rushing in on Sunday morning to bet all sorts of nonsense. They're going to bet the overs. So for both of our unders, I think you guys hang tight. Marco is going to the hardwood.
I am. We're going to go to basketball. Well, give you a taste.
First basketball bet of the year.
Well, give you a taste of what's going to be coming on Bet On It. We're going to be doing basketball moving forward, so let's do it. And I'm going to go to my hometown team, but I'm not going to take them. I was on them last night, the Pitt Panthers.
They tried to give me a heart attack in overtime.
They did, but the play last night was, again, it was a situational play. You had Louisville that was coming off of playing at Notre Dame the game before, and I don't care if Notre Dame has a good team or doesn't have a good team. Teams that go to South Bend, there's such history and tradition and mystique about going there. That's a big game. And Louisville, what did they have on deck? Well, they got a big showdown on Saturday with Duke. So it was a great spot for Pitt to ambush Louisville. And they did, except they forgot to score the final 2.5 minutes of the game and blew a 7-point lead. Okay, now you blow a 7-point lead to the 11th ranked team. You had the game there to win.
I thought they were going to catch it. I was kicking myself for not sprinkling.
Thank God they hung on in overtime to cover. But now they got to play North Carolina on Saturday. They just beat North Carolina in North Carolina a week ago. They're not beating North Carolina twice in the same season. I know North Carolina has had injuries, and I know North Carolina, as all of the blue chip programs are,
A little down on the season.
they have to rebuild every year. They get better as the season goes on. I'm going to take North Carolina here in the rematch. Pitt's going to probably be a 1 or 2 point favorite in this game. Either way, I've got North Carolina winning by 7, so that's the parameter for you. As long as we're getting points or not laying more than 2.5 in this one, we'll go ahead and take North Carolina as my best bet on Saturday.
All right, VR, take the floor.
Yeah, mine's in the UFC main event. But real quickly, this is the week we want to also put in teasers. They should be about -160, -170 in championship games. You want to use that teaser, take advantage of it this week. Win or lose, it's the right move, plus EV. But we're going Conor McGregor to win inside the distance at -205. Should be -400. That's the true number. Believe it or not, should be about 80% win probability there. We know he's a finisher. It's not going to the scorecards. In fact, the prop on whether it goes the distance, the no is now -675 from an opener -250. Conor gets this. Stylistically, it's just a great matchup for him. The off time's actually going to do him good. He hasn't taken a beating. He's fresh, unlike Cerrone, who's fought 4 times in 2019 and comes off back-to-back losses.
Is this just a paycheck for him?
Yeah, I mean,
kind of what it
of course
looks
he
like.
wants to win, but where he is, he doesn't have title aspirations. So now it's a pay fight. It's not like he wins this, he's going to get a title fight next. Where with Conor, he's going to get a title now. His focus is very in MMA right now, big time.
All right, I agree with you. We're going to step out for a quick break. When we return, it's going to be our final thoughts on this week's NFL action.
I'm Gianni the Greek Karalis. I turned a profit in 2018 and 2019 at WagerTalk.com, and we're 15 days into 2020 and already up for the year. Got a long way to go, though. Heading into the divisional round, we're 7-3 on playoff premiums and 3-0 on those best bets. More importantly, NBA and college basketball over the last 365 days, up over 80% in each of those sports. That's 160+% in both. So jump on board. I have a special going on, 7 days, $79. Use the coupon code below. You get NFL, NBA, NHL, UFC, whatever I bet, you get 7 days, $79. Jump on board. Don't miss this week.
Hey guys, I'm Lawrence Presman, the Prez, co-founder of WagerTalk. Excited that you're all watching Bet On It. Just want to tell you guys about our hockey show, Puck Time. It's honestly the best show that I do all week. We do it with all of the hockey talent over at WagerTalk and Sports Memo, from Alex B. Smith to Dave Koken, Carmine Bianco, Buster Sports, myself, and Andrew McGinnis. Different co-hosts every day. It's hockey all the time, and it's one of the best sports to bet on, and certainly the most exciting sport to watch. Check us out 2 p.m. Eastern every day, Monday to Friday, at WagerTalk TV.
All right, before we recap all of this week's games, VR, I wanted to touch on something you said in the last segment regarding teasers.
This is the weekend.
This is the weekend. So you had mentioned that sometimes the books will juice them. If you can still get a 6-point teaser in the NFL -120, you have to do it.
You got to do it.
Okay.
And you just got to tease through key numbers. It's plus EV. Again, I say it all the time. I wish someone taught me how to place good bets 20 years ago instead of just getting winning information, because I didn't know how to use that winning information. And our goal is to teach you to place good bets. And again, this is the weekend where odds makers, bookmakers will tell you teasers should be -150, 160 on a 6-point teaser, just historically if you look at the results. So you want to take advantage of those times.
Because we don't get those very often.
Exactly. Win or lose, you know you're getting the best of it, and that's all you could hope for when you're betting sports.
The question is, we've had a teaser segment on
I was just
season.
getting
Why
ready
not
there.
this week?
Why not this
Exactly.
week? Well, for me, because one of them, I like the dog. And a 6-point teaser on a 7.5-point dog is not
It's not
it's not a
advantageous. Right,
traditional plus EV teaser. You'd have to go to 7 to get it to the, over the 14, and it's just not what you'd normally do.
So my question is this, VR, if I'm just supposed to be super square and just tease
both
Kansas
favorites
City,
down, do it. You got to do it. It's plus EV. You got to do it. Even if it's, I like Green Bay money line, and I'm going to do it. And I didn't bend at teasers all year because it's plus EV. You have to. I'm even going to toss in some teasers and even throw a dog, even throw the totals in. Because again, I always say, compare it to blackjack. I know with blackjack, 7 out of 10 hands, the house is going to have the edge. But it's those 3 hands that I know for certainty that I have the edge. As long as I bet right, I'm going to beat them. This is one of those times where I know using the teaser is advantageous. I may lose them all this year, but keep doing it year after year. I make money, like again.
Got it. Okay, let's recap real quick what we've got. We got Tennessee at Kansas City. Marco likes Kansas City in this one. VR likes the under. Green Bay at San Fran. Marco likes Green Bay in the first half. Gianni, Green Bay money line. Let's go. Best bets over here. Marco's going to the hardwood on Saturday with North Carolina plus the points. I'm taking the under in the Green Bay-San Francisco game. In VR, Conor McGregor wins inside the distance, minus 205. Awesome stuff tonight's show. I hope you guys enjoyed it as much as we always do doing it from VR, Marco, myself. Oh, and the stat man, Mr. Ralph Michaels. Good luck this conference championship weekend. I know we gave you guys a ton of information to sift through, but don't you worry. We're going to be back each and every week for the next 35 weeks.
Except you next week.
Yeah, except I'll be in Costa Rica next week. Either way, guys, good luck. And until next week, let's bet on it.